So the iPhone 17 has been sitting right next to the Pro Max model as my secondary daily driver iPhone for 7 months straight. Because when this phone was launched, the entire tech world agreed that this was the best value iPhone that Apple has ever created. But here's what nobody is talking about right now, because with the iOS 27 being announced at WWDC, this phone is actually a stronger buy today compared to when it was first launched. So if you're using an older iPhone and you're sitting there wondering whether or not you should pull the trigger now or wait for the iPhone 18, the answer is going to surprise you. So watch first and buy smart. Now let me start here, the design, because after 7 months, the lavender color still looks incredibly nice. No scratches at the back, no scuffs, and it has aged really well. Design wise, it feels very similar if you have ever used the iPhone 16 before, as it had the same smooth matte finish at the back and sides. You still have the action button and the control button, which I use every single day. Some people call the action button a gimmick, but I use it every time to open Todoist. And Apple has kept the softer edges since the 15 series, so there's no sharp corners digging at your palms as the older iPhone 12, 13 or even the 14 models. Now what's even better is that this phone's display is slightly bigger, because you get a 6.3-inch display now versus the 6.1-inch display on the previous iPhone 16, and that brings us to the display, because the display is where the iPhone 17 completely changes the game. Now for years, Apple has actually kept the base model stuck at 60Hz in terms of the refresh rate. In year 2025, you are actually paying 3,999 ringgit for a 60Hz screen, and that is like paying for a 4K streaming subscription and getting delivered on a VHS tape. But on the iPhone 17, that finally changes, because for the very first time, Apple brought the ProMotion 120Hz down to this base model. It scales from 1Hz on a static screen all the way to 120Hz when you're scrolling, and the difference over here is night and day, because now the base iPhone actually feels like the Pro or even the Pro Max for that matter. It is buttery smooth once you use it, and going back to 60Hz honestly feels painful. Now the screen is also significantly brighter now, up to 3000 nits of peak brightness, and that is even significantly better than the previous iPhone 16 Pro and the Pro Max. So the screen is perfectly readable under a very bright sun outdoors. And also worth mentioning is that if you ever been frustrated on how dim iPhone gets outdoors, this completely fixes that. Then finally, because the bezels are incredibly thin this year, the display even looks slightly bigger every single time that you pick up this phone. Now inside you have the A90 chip, and if you like to do a lot of benchmark scores, and if you know us, we do not like to do that because we like to talk about the daily use instead of synthetic benchmark tests. Now in 7 months of daily use, I have not once felt that this phone hesitated at all. Apps loads instantly, multitasking is smooth, gaming handles everything that I throw at it without breaking a sweat, and heat management has been really solid as well, where it gets a little warm during a super long gameplay but nothing uncomfortably so. And paired that with a liquid glass interface, the whole experience just glides, where every swipe, every folder open and every animation takes full advantage of the 120Hz display in a way that makes the phone an absolute joy to use every single day, where it will surely make you stop and wonder, is this really a base model iPhone or a Pro? So with a brighter 120Hz and a powerful chip like the A19, you might be asking, how does the battery actually hold up after 7 months? Well, the battery health is still sitting at 98%, and I have close to 216 charge cycles on this phone as well. And this is after 7 months of heavy use. So in a daily use, I take this off my charger at about 9 AM and I'm out the whole day shooting content, scrolling feeds on Instagram, replying emails, streaming Windows on the go. And by the time I wind down and head to bed around 11 PM, I still have about 15 to 20% left. Yep, a full day every single day. And the reason for that is because there are two things that is working very well together, which is the A19 chip's efficiency and the ProMotion display. Because as mentioned earlier, when it's on a static screen like this, it will stay at 1Hz, so it doesn't really consume battery unnecessarily. And Apple also says that this particular newer model also holds about 80% of the original capacity at 1000 charge cycles, and being at 98% after nearly 216 cycles, that is a really good sign for the long run. Next, let's talk about the software, or specifically iOS 27, because I just got back from WWDC 2026 at Apple Park and I had a full hands-on with everything coming to iOS 27. And look, I want to be upfront about something. For the past year, Apple Intelligence has been like a work in progress, as you guys know. Most of the time, I was actually defaulting to Claude, Gemini, or even ChatGPT because Siri was not that capable, and I'm sure you know that too. But iOS 27 changes that story completely because Siri AI is completely different than the Siri that we have known before. Now, while you can say the magic word or press and hold the side button, but now there's a new way for you to get Siri where you can just swipe from the dynamic island as well. And there's also the dedicated Siri app where you can have full conversation history which lives in this app, and it syncs privately across all of your Apple devices, whether or not it's on your Mac or even your iPad too. But what makes a huge difference is the personal context, because I asked Siri when is Germany's next World Cup match, and instead of just stopping and giving us a short answer, it actually pulls up the fixture, the date, the kickoff time, and the stage that it is at. Then I said remind me 2 hours before the kickoff, and it's done. No app switching or even opening Safari. Then I even asked something like, can you tell me when Michael Josh and I had fish and chips together? And Siri went through my messages and told me the exact date, just like that. But of course, keep in mind that at this particular point of time, at this beta version, is only applicable for the Messages app. So hopefully when the public version is out, it can work with WhatsApp or even Telegram. Then visual intelligence through the camera app is also another big thing, because I pointed my camera at a cup of latte and I didn't even tell Siri what was that. And Siri immediately gave a full calorie breakdown when I asked how many calories it was, including the different calories depending on the different type of milk. Now I've done an in-depth showcase on what Siri AI can do on the iPad and also the Mac. So if you haven't seen that video, do check it out if you haven't done so over here. Not sure which side it is, so I'm pointing both directions. Then in photos, there are 3 new editing tools that will change how you work with images. First and foremost, cleanup has improved massively, removing objects and restoring background very naturally. And remember those viral videos where you cover your face with one hand and then ask cleanup to remove it and bring back your covered face? Well, it works flawlessly now, as you can see in this particular sample style. Next, there is extend, which actually lets you pinch an image to fill in more space around the subject as though it was shot in a wider lens. And the most mind-blowing feature is spatial reframe, where you can actually orbit around the photo and change the angle accordingly. And honestly, I thought that this is only going to be working with something like using the Apple Vision Pro to take photos and stuff like that, or maybe you need to have like a 3D camera to do such things. But the good news is that not only it works with your latest photos, but also previously taken photos on your iPhone. Then Apple Intelligence can also do cool things on your Photos app, like searching your library for photos for a specific trip. Like for example, searching for photos in Penang, which I went with my family, and it gives me the exact photos only when it was taken in Penang. Then Apple Intelligence on the Apple Calendar also is a really cool thing, because now you can just describe an event with who, when and where, and it fills everything for you, like how Todoist has the natural language, but this is on your calendar where you can easily add them by just talking or telling a story on how you want to add that particular calendar into your overall schedule. Then Safari now organizes your open tabs into topics automatically, and then there's also the very nice feature called Notify Me, where it tells Safari to alert you when something on the page changes, like for example if a product comes back in stock or if a new flavor of your favorite ice cream comes out. And then there's also the super underrated Describe a Shortcut, something which is very powerful because you can just type out anything you want to automate, and Apple Intelligence builds the entire shortcut for you just by saying it. And this happens no matter how complicated it is. So now you have no excuses not to use the shortcuts app anymore. And of course, all of this runs mostly on device privately, and your data stays on your phone. And the iPhone 17 supports every single one of these features mentioned earlier, and that is why buying this phone today still makes complete sense. And with iOS 27, it has made this a better phone than it was on launch day, and it's only going to get more capable from here. Now, if you're finding this video helpful so far, do give this video a nice big thumbs up to tell the people running the YouTube algorithm that this video was good for you, and a subscription would be extra sweet too, so thank you, and thank you very much in advance. Now let's talk about the cameras, because after 7 months I have a very clear picture on what this phone can do and what it cannot do. So both the main lenses and the ultra wide lenses are now 48 megapixels this year, and this also unlocks macro mode in this particular phone as well. So in daily shooting, portrait mode for people and cats. is flawless. And what's also lovely is that in case you do not know that if you take photos and did not go into the portrait mode, you can also add it as a portrait mode and select the depth after taking the photo. Then dynamic range for the ultra wide lenses, the main lenses, the 1x and even the 2x is excellent during a very harsh daylight, so that was really nice to know. Then night photography from the ultra wide keeps the skies looking natural and dark, the way your eyes actually sees it. But the real standout for me after 7 months is the front camera, because with this new 18 megapixel square sensor on the front, this is totally a game changer because the sensor is square. You can actually shoot ultra wide landscape videos and selfies without turning your phone sideways like this. So this is a perfect thing whether or not you're a content creator or just want to capture some family moments, because the front camera alone is definitely worth the upgrade compared to any other iPhones that you've used. But there are two things about the phone that you need to consider, because as you know, watch first, buy smart, and no phones are perfect, right? Firstly is the missing lens, and the second one is the phone spot. There are no optical telephoto lens, so you're working with a 2x digital crop from the main lens, and if you push beyond that, the quality does drop noticeably. So if you shoot a lot of concerts, sports or zoom in portraits, you will miss having that dedicated telephoto lens. But if you do not use the telephoto lens as often, then it might not bug you at all. Second is the USB-C port is limited to USB 2.0 on transfer speeds. Now for most people, once again, that may not matter because if you're using AirDrop or iCloud, that is fine. But if you shoot heavy video files or 4K video files and you transfer it via cable, it is quite slow. And I do know this personally because on my main daily driver, the iPhone 17 Pro Max, that the USB 3.0 speeds on the iPhone 17 Pro models are noticeably faster when it comes to transferring a lot of videos. So if those two things are part of your daily workflow, then do consider the Pro. But for the average user, you won't even notice either one of them. Now, if you want a written version of this review and all of our video reviews, we do have one at our website at www.adamlobo.tv. Links to the website will be down below, where we also have some daily tech news over there too. So in conclusion, here's where we land after 7 months. The iPhone 17 launched to be the best value iPhone that Apple has ever created. With the ProMotion 120Hz on the base model for the very first time, an A19 chip that beats many phones within the price range or even more, a battery that gets you through a full day without fail, and now with iOS 27 on top of all of that, this should be the iPhone for you to get. But should you wait for the iPhone 18 then? Well, here is my honest take. Apple has not announced anything about the iPhone 18 yet, and the iPhone still comes out only at the end of the year, and waiting for something with no confirmed date means that you could be sitting on an older iPhone for a very long time for a phone that you know nothing about. But what is sitting right in front of you is this, the iPhone 17. So if you're on the iPhone 12, 13 or the 14, you're looking at the best iPhone to buy right now, because the iPhone 17 is the answer.